Hello and welcome back to Life.EV, podcast that dives into exploring values. As usual, I'm your host Ajit Panicker. I lead an air conditioning company Nova and PureBlue, a tech startup in the air conditioning domain. Every Saturday at 11 a.m., we bring you conversations that go beyond business growth, focusing on the values that fuel it. Let's embark on a journey to uncover our true purpose and how we can grow by enriching our lives. Welcome to Life.EV, where we explore values in life and business. And I have with me Vivek Asrani. Hi, Vivek. Welcome back.
Hi Ajit, how are you doing today?
Absolutely good. Vivek Asrani is the driving force behind Camo Fastener Company, a trailblazing company in the industry of fire. What sets Vivek apart is his deep engagement with the exploration of values. For close to 4 years, he has dedicatedly penned his reflections on this topic every week. These insightful thoughts are accessible on his website, vivekasrani.com. Additionally, Vivek has authored the book One Day at a Time Reflections from Times of Silence, which further delves into his journey and insights. This thought provoking read is available on Amazon and also on his website, offering readers a chance to engage with his profound understanding of values and their role in both personal and professional lives. In today's episode, we're delving into a topic which is dealing with our pain. Vivek, let's hear your reflections on this.
So, Ajit, all of us have experienced pain. Maybe some of us are experiencing pain even at this point of time in our life, right? We've all experienced pain, we've all dealt with it in our own way. And it's not that if we've experienced pain and dealt with it, it goes away once and for all. Pain comes back. And I would like to start by reading the first paragraph from my reflection on this. To deal with our pain, we need to understand our pain. Often, pain is nothing but the emotion attached to the event which we continue holding on to even when the event has passed. Handled correctly, not only can we rid ourselves of the pain, we can even use it to our advantage in our growth and development. So, pain is an emotion attached to something that happens. So, in life, there are two things: there's the fact and an emotion attached to the fact. I'll give a simple example. Somebody we love dearly passes away. Now that's a fact. Intellectually, we all know that we're not going to live forever. And yet, when that incident occurs, when that event actually occurs, we go through an emotion attached to that event. That emotion is where the pain resides. The pain was not in the event, it was in the emotion attached to the event. So when we learn to distill the event and the emotion attached to it, that's the starting point in recognizing where my pain resides. That's one. Second is, it is very natural. I mean, if you say that, okay, so does it mean that we shouldn't feel pain? No, I'm not for a moment saying that. All I'm saying is that recognize where it resides and where it is coming from. The momentary pain, because we're all human, the emotion will come, is very natural and it should be there. We can't suppress it. But if we continue holding on to that emotion for the rest of our life, then we have to understand that we are also, Ajit, holding on to that pain for the rest of our life. You said something to me a few years ago. I didn't like it, right? Now the event is over. At that point, the emotion was there, it's over. But I'm holding on to that emotion. So I'm holding on to that grudge and that anger against you for all these years. So then if I ask me that how's life, and I'm like, no, life is not good because I live with a lot of pain. But if you're living with a lot of pain because you choose not to let go of the emotion and you're still holding on to something that happened. So I think this, as an introduction to what is pain, for me has been extremely helpful. And then I've gone on to say, Ajit, in the reflection as well, that we can turn pain to our advantage. So what do I mean by that? So when we lose somebody, we obviously feel the pain, and we feel a certain amount of sadness. But at that point of time, if we allow all the happy and good memories of that person to enter us, and we say, okay, and I'll share this with you, yeah, and with our friends who've been watching this podcast. When dad passed away, I remember passed away in Lonavala. I was in Bombay, and I drove there, and he was already gone. And Ajit, the first thought and the only thought I had when I saw him, I said, you know what? Only good and happy thoughts about him. I mean, obviously, I was pained that my father passed away, but I said my biggest tribute to this man and to this great father would be all good and happy thoughts of him. So, pain can give way to joy. Second is, we go through a lot of painful experiences. We make mistakes, we have losses in business, we have breakdowns in relationships, we make mistakes, and it leads to situations which are painful. But in and through those situations, there could be a lot of learnings and insights. And if we were to take a step back and forget the emotion of the pain, but see what we've learned through that situation, pain can give way to our growth and development. Very often we see others going through a certain amount of pain, and sometimes it reflects on us also because we are so close to them that we feel it. But then that pain gives way to compassion. It evokes a certain level of compassion in us. Often when we are going through pain, there are others who come to our help and who become a support system for us, and then we suddenly realize, in and through our pain and the difficult situation we're going through, that there is so much to be grateful for, and we are so blessed. So pain gives way to a lot of gratitude. Okay. The one thing which I have always believed, that we feel pain because we have felt love at some point of time. Because I have loved, I feel pain. If I didn't love somebody and something goes wrong with that person, I don't think I'll feel that kind of pain. Because I love a person so much, because I love my business so much, because I love my family so much, when something goes wrong, I feel the pain. So when we recognize that my pain is actually rooted in love, then pain gives way to love. And the last thing which I will say, which is very difficult, and I have personally experimented with this, Ajit, and it was quite remarkable. And I'll share that example in our podcast a little later. That there are people who hurt us, and because of whom we feel pain. And when we find it in ourselves to rise above that pain and think well of them and forgive them in our own way, then pain gives way to forgiveness and a sense of humility, knowing that we are as capable of making those mistakes. So dealing with our pain is really about understanding what is pain, where it resides, and when we are experiencing pain, it can actually give way to a whole lot of other things which are positives in our life.
Vivek, this also brings me to a thought, and I wanted your opinion on this because often when someone's going through any kind of pain, it could be physical, it could be mental, it could be business, they're all different natures of pain, right? And this I have personally experienced also. Um, some people talk about it, some people don't. And one thing which they all believe is that my pain is the biggest. But the very understanding that pain is universal is very humbling in the sense when I listen to somebody else's pain, I just realize that my pain is really small. Have you gone through this kind of a situation? Because I have been through that situation. And then just because my pain has suddenly become solved, I feel lighter and I think, yeah, I think I can solve this, but I think he needs my help to solve his pain. Have you ever been through these situations?
Yeah, no, no, very, very often. But this reminds me of, somebody had once asked us this puzzle. They drew a line. I remember this was in school. They drew a line on the board and say, "Can you make this line shorter without touching it?" So we thought it was like a trick question, and various things. And then the person went and drew a longer line below that and said, relative to the longer line, now this line is shorter.
True.
I mean, this was just a kind of puzzle or a question in school, but that that stayed with me. And what you've just asked, no, Ajit, is exactly the same thing. That when I share my pain and what I'm going through, suddenly your life, in relative to what I might be going through, what you are looking as a major issue in your life, right, will seem a little smaller because of what I might be going through. And therefore, I have always said we shouldn't shy away from sharing our stories with people. We shouldn't shy away from sharing uh, what we are going through sometimes. Of course, without breaking somebody else's confidentiality or trust. And why am I saying that? Because end of the day, we're not alone in going through the emotions we're going through. Second is to try and always portray this picture perfect life that I'm living. Okay, it puts a certain amount of pressure that, look, I've got this great facade and nothing it should crack it. Okay, to the outside world it should look great no matter what else I'm going through. That's not natural. In a way, of course, I should be sharing with you all the good and happy and the fun things that are happening in my life. And at the same time, with certain relationships, I should also be sharing some of the challenges and the pain that I might be going through. A, it allows somebody else into my life. Second, it will give me a perspective which I myself might be lacking. Sometimes a doctor cannot treat himself. Okay. Third, I might be helping you, and I could be, turning my pain to our advantage to say, listen, this is what I'm going through in my business. We had this situation, this situation, this situation, and this situation. And you're like, wow, I was dealing with one thing and I thought that's like crazy. And oh my God, look at what this guy's going through. I'm suddenly, it's not that I'm saying that to make you feel better, but it just puts life in perspective. Fourth is you suddenly realize that you're not alone, right? And we start becoming a support system to each other. So for sure, we need to, uh, you know, be and with people we are close to. I'm not for a moment saying that we talk to strangers about what we're going through, but I'll share with you a very interesting story. That Stephen Covey has written in his book. There was this man on a train with his two children, and he was just staring down at the floor while the kids were jumping on the bed, on the seats and making a huge racket, and all the passengers were visibly upset. And one passenger sitting next to him couldn't hold himself any longer, and he said, listen, your kids are making a nuisance of themselves and you're just doing nothing, and all the other passengers are getting really agitated. And this man looks up and says, oh, I'm really sorry. I didn't realize. The fact is, we've just come back after burying their mother. They've just lost their mother, and I don't think they know how to process it. So suddenly that anger converted into compassion and empathy. So when I share my pain, it also changes the quality of my relationships.
Amazing. The other thing that I really wanted to bring about in this podcast was also, and it's something that I have seen among my friends, is coping with uh, what's coping with pain, in the sense what's healthy and what's unhealthy. Well, I'll give you an example. All of us have a take time out and we have a couple of drinks and everything, more social drinking and everything. But sometimes when you go through a difficult time or you're going through a painful solution, you don't realize that what seemed normal at that time can be a crutch and can get addictive, and that's an unhealthy way of doing it. So, don't you think we should also have a sense of realization that when you're going through a pain, you should know what's the healthy and unhealthy way of doing it, of dealing with such?
Yes, and to be honest, extremely difficult. And I'll tell you why difficult. In a uh, regular, I'm using the word regular as relative to going through a painful experience. You're in a certain frame of mind, and there's a certain clarity which you have in life. When we are going through pain, we are also very vulnerable because that emotion is clouding our intellect. It is taking away from us that clarity, the positivity, and the anchoring to some of our principles. Because we are so pained and we are so hurt, sometimes we just react in a manner. And that reaction or that escape could be in something which later on we come back to say, I should have known better. So it's, I think, very important, Ajit, and I think what you've touched on is very critical. That when we have fever, if it lasts for more than a day, we go see a doctor because our worry is that that fever could be coming from something which may need immediate attention, right? We don't allow a fever to stay in the system. It's the same with pain. If we allow the pain to stay in our system, it takes root. So the moment we experience pain, the moment we find that, look, this has entered my system, we need to rid ourselves of that pain. And how do we rid ourselves of that pain? Partly by talking about it to somebody. And when you express it and you share your vulnerability with somebody, it itself reduces in a way. Partly by giving ourselves a perspective, and partly, and that's what I said, that I'll talk about this real life example which I've experienced. We had this very nasty income tax officer who, because we were not willing to bribe him, uh, not only not only gave us an adverse judgment, but reopened the prior 4 years assessment and the next 3 years. So we were in appeal for 7 years with the income tax department because I refused to pay 25,000 rupees to a corrupt to a corrupt income tax officer. I was livid. I was angry, and legitimately so, right? And there was a lot of pain, lot of hurt, lot of anger. When I sat down one day, Ajit, and I said, this anger and pain that I'm feeling is not healthy for me. Forget what he's done. Why am I compromising myself? And I said the only way I can get rid of this pain is if I think well of the person who has caused me this pain. I actually prayed for that man and I prayed for his well-being. I used to meet him for work, and on the second or third meeting he tells me, he says, I shouldn't have done this with you. You will win an appeal. I said, I know I'll win an appeal, but you realize what you've put a small medium business through. But honestly, I was I had a feeling of liberation. And because of that liberated feeling, I was able to apply myself and we won all the seven appeals. Because actually there was nothing, I mean, the case was flimsy. It was just that he was a corrupt guy. But I'm saying I was able to rid myself of the pain with praying for that very person who has hurt me.
Amazing. Tell me something. How much of this also comes from the fact that this is you have uh, time as a healer, because there are certain kinds of pain that there are no solutions for it, right? We all know about it. Loss of business, somebody causing harm to you, loss of a loved one. There's no solution. And how much is all about a mindset saying that, listen, it's my journey. I have to go through this, and time's the healer. Do you also believe in a concept like that?
Of course, of course. Time is definitely a big healer. And the one thing I think we have to keep reminding ourselves is that the only time that we really have is the here and now. Because what's happened, we can't undo. What is going to happen, we have no control over. We have no idea. We don't even know how much time we have. I'm not saying this in a fatalistic way, but I'm just saying this in a very practical way. The only time we really have is the here and now. If we live with constant awareness, always in the present, and making the present moment the most important in our life at that point of time. And we don't allow the regrets of the past or the anxiety of the future to flood our mind and to carry us away from this vital present, then in that process of living, I think we are also able to dissolve a lot of our pain because we're not allowing that pain to germinate. If I live in my past as to what happened and I hold on to it, then I'm allowing it to germinate. I'm feeding it, you know. Or if I'm looking ahead all the time and always anxious and worried, that might pain me. That look, I don't know what's going to happen and feel very painful as to what the situation is going to be like. But if I'm in the here and now, easier said than done. But I think that's if you're saying time is a healer, then living in the now is the best healer.
Awesome. Well, that's what time we had. That usual 20 minutes is up. That helps us get through these thought-provoking discussions. We would encourage our listeners to share these ideas. Start a conversation, bring it up as a discussion, and see where it leads. Share these thoughts with your loved ones, join the dialogue on our social media platforms, and tell us what are the insights and learnings that you gained from this episode. That's it, what we have for today. Join us again next week for another episode of Life.EV, where we continue our exploration into the fascinating world of exploring values in our lives. Vivek, thank you very much as usual. Thanks for being with us this week, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, Ajit. My pleasure. Take care.
We are on episode number 43. That's it. See you guys next week. Bye bye.